Our social studies teacher, Miss Thompson, had always been known for her dedication and tireless work ethic. Late one evening, she found herself alone in the school office, surrounded by stacks of papers and textbooks. The dimly lit room cast long shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere of solitude and quiet. Engrossed in her work, Miss Thompson was startled when a sharp knock resounded from the door. Surprised, she muttered to herself, "Who could it be at this hour?" Curiosity getting the better of her, she cautiously approached the door and swung it open. To her bewilderment, she was met with a seemingly endless corridor stretching out before her. Despite peering into the darkness, there was no sign of anyone in sight. Puzzled, Miss Thompson closed the door, chalking up the incident to fatigue and an overactive imagination. Resuming her work at the desk, she tried to push the strange occurrence out of her mind. However, before long, another knock echoed through the office. This time she feigned indifference, dismissing it as the mere sound of the wind or an overactive imagination. As Miss Thompson continued her work, a creeping unease settled upon her. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and every so often she couldn't help but glance towards the door. Suddenly her heart skipped a beat as she locked eyes with a figure staring at her. The teacher's face twisted into a look of sheer surprise, her body freezing in response. The shock was too much for her system to bear, and she slumped over, collapsing onto the office floor. News of Ms. Thompson's inexplicable collapse spread like wildfire throughout the school. Students whispered in hushed tones, speculating about what might have caused such a sudden and mysterious event. The homeroom teacher, Miss Rodriguez, addressed the concerned students, urging them to focus on their studies and refrain from spreading baseless rumors. With time, the atmosphere at the school gradually calmed down. However, the ghostly encounter lingered in the minds of the students, leaving an air of trepidation in its wake. It was a calm Sunday, a day when the school was empty and peaceful. Mari, along with her friends Kathy and Aya, found themselves gathering in the quiet halls. Sunday was their ideal day for honing their talents and skills without any worries of interruptions. Being members of the school theater club, they had assembled for a meeting. As the afternoon turned into evening, 3 of them decided to take a well-deserved break. They stepped outside and found a spot near the school playground where they could enjoy the soothing breeze that gently rustled through the trees. Kathy, being the adventurous type, suggested a spontaneous haircutting session and turn a playground into a makeshift hair salon. With a mischievous grin, she looked at her friends and said,
"You know what? I've always wanted to practice my skills, and lucky for me, I have 2 guinea pigs. Volunteers who can make that happen."
Kathy chuckled, reaching into her bag for a pair of scissors.
"I've got you covered, Mari. Sit tight and I'll work my magic."
Mari reluctantly sat down and let Kathy do her hair, comforting herself with the thought that she needed a hairdo but didn't have enough money to go to a real hair salon, hoping this would be a good opportunity. Aya, who is always in La La Land, joined in, giggling.
"Well, we've never done this before, but how hard could it be? Let's give it a shot."
Mari took a seat as Kathy positioned herself behind, ready to snip away. With each careful cut, the girls exchanged laughter and stories. However, as Mari's bangs fell before her eyes, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Something didn't feel right, a subtle shift in the atmosphere that made her spine tingle. Mari, eagerly trying to find the cause of such a feeling, lifted her gaze towards the towering school building. Her gaze fixated on something unusual. The curtains of a classroom on the 3rd floor were tightly drawn, exposing the entire room visible through the window. Mari furrowed her brow, wondering why someone would leave the curtains tied like that. She closed her eyes, attempting to brush off the oddity as a figment of her imagination. But the nagging feeling persisted, and her curiosity got the better of her. She opened her eyes, fixating on the window once again. Her heart skipped a beat as she saw something that chilled her to the core. Behind the window, there was no human body to be seen. Instead, a long mane of hair floated in the air, accompanied by a disembodied face. Mari's breath caught in her throat, her body paralyzed with fear. It was as if time stood still and the world around her faded into the background.
"Hey, did you see that? A face?"
Mari's voice quivered as she spoke, barely audible. her eyes wide with terror. She turned her head to gauge Kathy's reaction, seeking confirmation. Kathy, engrossed in her task of cutting her hair, looked up abruptly, her hands frozen in midair. Fear etched across her face, her eyes widened as she processed what Mari had just said.
Yes, I saw it too, but it was on the 3rd floor.
Kathy whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of shock and anxiety. The realization that they had both witnessed something inexplicable sent shivers down their spines. The once lively atmosphere now grew heavy with an unspoken dread. Aya, who had been sitting close by, suddenly sprang to her feet, her face pale as a ghost. Grabbing Mari and Kathy by the wrists, she began running, her grip firm and unyielding. Panic overtook them as they dashed through the empty playground, propelled by an instinctive need to escape. Streetlights illuminated their path as they raced towards the main gate. Their hearts pounded in their chests, the sound echoing in their ears. Finally, they skidded to a halt among a crowd of people, their breaths ragged and labored. Mari finally caught her breath and exclaimed,
Hey, it was already terrifying, but you made it even scarier. I got so frightened because of you.
Aya, whose face had turned pale, looked at each of her friends alternately, her voice trembling as she spoke.
While you two were talking, I glanced towards the window. Do you know what I saw? On the 2nd floor, there was this woman with just a face. She had the creepiest smile, stretching from ear to ear. It sent shivers down my spine.
It went silent as Aya's words hung in the air, and the gravity of the situation sank in for Mari and Kathy. They exchanged alarmed glances, realizing the magnitude of what Aya had just revealed. Mari's initial encounter on the 4th floor, Kathy's sighting on the 3rd floor, and Aya's own chilling experience on the 2nd floor all connected to form a chilling sequence. Mari continued to explain.
If she was descending from the 4th floor to the 3rd, and then to the 2nd floor, that means she was getting closer to the 1st floor. If she had reached there, she would have come out.
Aya's words echoed through their minds, stirring a primal fear deep within them. The thought of a face of a woman floating in the air with an unnerving smile silently making her way down the floors of the building sent shivers down their spines. Aya's instincts screamed at them to run, to escape the imminent danger lurking within those walls. The atmosphere outside offered a semblance of relief, but their hearts still raced. Their breaths came in gasps. They found solace in their newfound safety, but the haunting image of the bodiless woman lingered in their minds. The experience had forever etched itself into their memories, a bone-chilling tale that would be shared for years to come. As they huddled together seeking comfort and reassurance, Mari, Aya, and Kathy couldn't help but wonder who or what that face of woman was, and what her intentions might have been. Was she merely a figment of their imagination, or was there something far more sinister at play? The unanswered questions fueled their curiosity, but for now, they were just grateful to have escaped her clutches.